What's that like? What's going on, people? Hey, it's an emergency edition of the What's That Like podcast, and I'm your host, John Knowles. I got to tell you, I wasn't planning on getting an episode out on this topic today, but I'm going to bring you here Skip Talbot. Skip was a guest on the show, I want to say last September in 2017, and we did a whole episode about storm chasing, an hour and a half, ups and downs, how you do it, how you don't. We reviewed the movie Twister. We talked about all kinds of things. And, of course, yesterday, December 1st, we had a terrible outbreak of tornadoes here in central Illinois. And as I was thinking about this morning going, probably a lot of you out there have an interest in storm chasing. I know a lot of you are out shooting video, and certainly you saw a lot of it on social media. I thought, well, I'll get Skip's episode out there again. You can learn all about storm chasing. And I thought, you know what? Maybe Skip will want to come back on the show. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. So Skip's going to join us here in a second. First, I want to thank all of our sponsors again. I want to thank Mike Belovich, Remax Alliance, U-Belts Bakery for bringing everything to you this Christmas, and of course, Dexco Home Renovations. They've been on board for a while here on the audio show. I want to thank each and every one of them. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to play a couple of ads, and we're going to get right to Skip. We'll be right back and figure out December 1st, 2018, tornadoes across central Illinois. What's that like?
Hey, this is Mike Belovich with Remax Alliance. If you're looking to sell your home, before you make a decision, we need to talk today. I get homes sold. I will get you results. I think outside of the box. Even if your house is for sale by owner right now and you just have some questions on, hey, Mike, how can I make this work? Call or text me today, 618-292-0293. I am full-time. I work 7 days a week, and I will help you get your house sold. They really can't see how handsome I am, though.
You're busy this holiday season, and it's tough to prepare all you need to, so let U-Belts Bakery in Litchfield help. U-Belts Catering can provide complete Thanksgiving turkey dinners, or all the individual items like the turkey, stuffing, or potatoes as well. For dessert, they have over a dozen varieties of pies in 3 sizes, all your favorites, pumpkin, apple, peach, pecan, and more. Don't forget they also have your favorite Staunton, sweetbreads, and cookies, too. U-Belts has been a Central Illinois institution since 1922, and as you gather your family, let U-Belts help you make it special. Call today at 217-324-5314 or go to ubelts.com. Happy holidays. Skip, it's good to have you back on the What's That Like podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, John, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, certainly wasn't planned. Who'd have thought we'd do a storm chasing episode here in December in central Illinois, but December 1st started out as like any other normal day. They said we were going to get some rain, but what did you know coming into December 1st, 2018?
Quite a unusual and potent setup for thunderstorms. I saw it coming down the pipe heading our way. And what really stood out to me on this setup was we had at the ground level, it seemed kind of cool and rainy and something that would not be particularly interesting in terms of, a big major severe weather event or a tornado outbreak. But what I saw was the temperatures aloft. The mid-levels of the atmosphere were super, super cold. And when you get any kind of moisture and instability under that cold air aloft, you can get monster storms and even big tornadoes. So that was the one thing that really jumped out at me going into December 1st. So I was watching this for several days, anticipating that I would be going out storm chasing, not expecting a tornado outbreak or a major damaging event, but knowing that there could be some supercells and maybe a surprise tornado. The end result vastly exceeded my expectations, though.
Yeah, let's back up just a quick second. We've certainly got listeners that might not have heard your original episode when you came on last year. Tell us a little bit about you quickly and how you got into storm chasing. Give us a 3-minute recap.
Yeah, so I am a software developer. That's my main gig. I'm originally from the Chicago area, but I live in Springfield now. And ever since I was a young child, I've been absolutely fascinated and obsessed with tornadoes. The town of Plainfield, just a few miles from where I grew up, was hit by an F5 when I was just 7. And since then, I've been ravenously consuming everything I can find about tornadoes. In college, I decided that I need to go see one of these myself. So I took a college course. I educated myself as best I could, and I hit the road. And I've been chasing for the past 15 years or so now, just out there to see tornadoes, trying to be as responsible and as beneficial I can be when I'm out on the road. But really, it's a hobby that I do and a passionate endeavor of mine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great recap. I want to thank you once again for coming on. Tell us about your day yesterday. You said it was coming up. You had been watching it for 2 or 3 days. So break down your day for me yesterday. What did you do?
Yeah, I watched the weather models going in, and I could see we had a potent storm system coming up here. And I'm looking for where all of these ingredients are coming together: shear, instability, moisture, and lift. And we had the warm front lifting up, bringing in those 60-degree temperatures that we experienced yesterday, a deepening low at the surface, and then a really powerful jet stream aloft. A similar setup that we had just a couple weeks ago in November that brought that big blizzard and a tornado warning over St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I said, this is a similar setup, and I'm expecting maybe some similar outcomes here again. Maybe another surprise tornado warning like over St. Louis. I was not expecting it to be such a monster tornado event, but yeah, I see these ingredients coming together on the weather models. The morning of, I really home in on a location. Where is this going to really pinpoint? Where is this all going to come together? I was most interested in the Jacksonville, Illinois area. It looked like we would have the best combination of wind shear and instability at that location. And as a storm chaser, trying to get photos and videos, I want a daytime storm. So I'm looking where the first ones are going to go up, knowing that there would be maybe storms later further south, maybe even bigger ones. But I want to try to get that daytime shot. So I went west out of Springfield, hoping to catch those first storms going up along the Mississippi River there, along the Illinois-Missouri border.
Were you out by yourself, or was there a lot of folks doing the same thing you were yesterday?
Yeah, I was by myself. This was kind of a short notice impromptu chase. I did not have time to organize, a major storm chasing expedition. My usual storm chasing partner, Jennifer Brindley, she couldn't make it down in time. She had obligations. So yeah, I was out there by myself.
Were there other storm chasers out with you?
I saw a couple dozen storm chasers out there that I recognized. And I was expecting that. This event was well forecast. The Storm Prediction Center was on top of the event, and storm chasers were looking at this in advance. So, yeah, we knew it was coming, and there were lots of folks out there for sure.
All right. So your day starts, you head toward Jacksonville. What was your first intercept of the day? What did you first see? Tell me about your day.
Yeah, passing west of Jacksonville, I had first eyes on the storm. Kind of an unusual type of day. If you're kind of imagining what it's like outside when there's a tornado, it's probably not at all what you're picturing. Actually, we had sunny blue skies with puffy white clouds, and then one of the puffy white clouds was just a little bit bigger than the others, and underneath was a nice gray bowl hanging underneath that storm. So that's what I first saw coming into town. A few minutes after that, as I got close to that storm, wisps of condensation started to get kicked up at the ground. A weak tornado. And I thought, that's pretty amazing. I saw a tornado in December. But after that, the storm really started to get going. It produced tornado after tornado. That storm produced 4 more tornadoes that I witnessed. And they got bigger and bigger as they went. So there was a big white cone stovepipe-shaped tornado that traveled near Beardstown and did some damage up there. And then finally, a large barrel-shaped tornado near Havana. That was really impressive looking visually. Most of these tracked over the Illinois River Valley. And then I caught one more after dark near the small town of Easton, Illinois.
Okay. You weren't on any of the storms that kind of hit further south, Staunton, Mount Olive, Litchfield, Hillsboro, into Taylorville, were you?
Once I get on that storm, I pretty much stick to it. So I chased from near Bluffs, Illinois, up to Havana. And then by that time, the storm that tracked up through Taylorville was really getting going. And that was a good 80 or 90 miles to my southeast. There was no way I could make it down to that storm in time. I watched it on the radar a little bit, but yeah, it was pretty amazing to see. This was an outbreak with multiple storms producing tornadoes.
Well, I'll tell you, I had this one covered. The one down here south, we had the tornado warning. I remember, it going off. And you know what? We get warnings. People out there, you get warnings. You ignore the warnings because you think this is not really happening. And it happened. I walked out on my back patio and saw a nice rope coming right over Mount Olive. Wow. And then I'm screaming and hollering to get my wife and son. We don't have a basement, so I'm yelling at them to get into the interior bathroom, smallest room, interior walls. And, of course, what did I do? I went back outside, took a picture. But not the smartest thing I know for all you listeners out there. But then as it moved north of town, my son and I, we did our first chase and drove out and caught it just north of Mount Olive as it dropped going into South Litchfield toward Butler, Illinois. How crazy was yesterday compared to what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it was super crazy. It way exceeded my expectations. And one of my most prolific and photogenic storm chases, and in December of all times of the year. So yeah, I mean, it can happen. Tornadoes can happen at any time of the year, any time of the day. They're not as common in the wintertime, but Illinois has the history of having December tornado events and even big violent tornadoes. So yeah, it happens. But man, it was a wild day out there. I don't think anyone saw that coming. No, just the scale of it.
Certainly not. How many do you know of that were documented across the state, Skip?
We're real preliminary at this point, and I am kind of tunnel vision, niche vision. I saw one storm yesterday, and all of my attention was on that. I have not had a lot of time to analyze the event in a broad sense. I've heard a couple reports that there were at least a dozen tornadoes yesterday, somewhere between a dozen and 20 tornadoes across the state. So is what I last heard.
How long did your day last? So you went out, what time did you get to Jacksonville? What time did you go kind of finish up, as you said, near Havana?
Yeah, these wintertime storm setups and with the cold air aloft, they work a little bit differently. They start a lot earlier in the day. I was leaving the house before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was on the storm shortly there afterwards. Of course, it gets dark so early. I tracked the first storm I was on for about 2 to 3 hours. Around a span of 60 miles from I-72 up there towards Havana, which is south of the Peoria area. And yeah, it was pretty much nonstop tornado. It would produce a tornado for several minutes, and then it would pause, catch its breath, and then it undergoes a process that we call cycling. And when it's cycled, I try to move up to get my next shot. And then once I lost sight of the storm, eventually I picked on a different storm and chased that for another half an hour or so before I lost it in the dark.
Is it unusual for it to recycle, and how often do those cycles kind of rebuild? You say you're trying to get ahead. It seemed like it dropped just south of Mount Olive here near Staunton, took out a car dealership, picked up, went over Mount Olive, drops to the north of Mount Olive, and then it seems like it builds every. I don't know what I'm asking. What should I be looking for here? How long does the cycle last?
It's a process we call a cyclical supercell, and it undergoes these phases where it builds an updraft, and then that updraft starts to rotate, and then it really wraps up and it produces a tornado. A spin up is what we call that. Then a mature tornado, and then finally it ropes out. And then the process repeats. The storm forms a new updraft base, a flat cloud base. It wraps up with a wall cloud and then does the same thing again. As long as the conditions at the surface are favorable for tornadoes, meaning we have warm, moist inflow into the storm at ground level and ample low-level wind shear, that's the key, are those winds turning with height, and do we have strong winds at the surface? If you've got that combination, that storm will continue to cycle and produce tornadoes. Yeah. So it's not until something that interferes with it before it's over with. So, and yesterday we just had that remarkable combination where multiple storms were able to tap into those ingredients. So we had just a huge parade of tornadoes across the state.
So yesterday you're out on these things. How close are you getting? Were you in a kind of a safe position? Were you a little risky? Tell me about your day from a standpoint of risk.
Yeah. In terms of how close I get, I try to be as safe as I can be out there in the field, and I always want to minimize my risks. To me, it's about getting a nice shot, not putting myself in jeopardy when I'm out there. It's not about the adrenaline rush for me. I can have a great chase experience and not ever be in any danger. Yesterday's storms, they were relatively small and compact. We had a modest amount of instability. So these were what we call a low top supercell, and the tornado producing region of the storm was actually rather tight and compressed to an area less than a mile wide. So I can actually get very close to that part of the storm in relative safety. And you'd be surprised, the tornado's forming right in front of me, maybe a half mile or so away, but I have basically blue skies overhead. So when I have that kind of storm, I feel pretty confident and comfortable getting quite close. And on one of the storms that I was on, I actually was basically right in one of the circulations as it started to develop. The storm was undergoing a cycle. It had just finished producing a weak tornado, and it was gearing up for the next. And I was underneath the storm at that time, not expecting a tornado, and there wasn't really one happening at the moment. But I noticed the leaves around me, the winds were going into the storm, what we call inflow, and it started to pick up all of the leaves around me and carry them into the storm. And as the leaves were blowing past me, I noticed they started going up, and other little bits and stuff off the ground was starting to float and soar and spiral up overhead around me. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. You know, it wasn't something particularly dangerous or dramatic. It was like a leaf whirl you'd see along the corner of a building somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then after that, the storm's rear flank downdraft outflow winds hit me and blew the leaves the other direction. So I had this impressive wind shift around me. But shortly after that, I looked up and there was a point funnel cloud starting to form over that leaf circulation. And then several minutes later, a fully condensed white rope tornado came out of that same spot. So basically right there at the birth of one of those tornadoes. So yeah, I could get quite close to some of these.
Did you ever feel like you were in danger yesterday at all?
Not from the tornadoes.
Okay.
There are multiple hazards when you're storm chasing, and multiple dangers that you really need to be alert for. At no point did I feel like I was in jeopardy of the tornadoes. So there were several other times, though, where I thought, yikes, that was a little crazy. I could have gotten into real trouble there. I was following that white tornado that formed right in front of me, and I knew I was going to cross the damaged path, but it still surprised me. I was coming around the bend, and there was a tree down in the road and lots of debris, and I had to take a pretty quick maneuver around that to avoid driving into all of that debris. Another time, I was getting really, really low on gas. I was out in the middle of nowhere, and I did not want to give up the storm or the chase. I carry reserve fuel with me, but the storm was basically right on top of me. I mean, it was about to hit, and I wanted to refuel, and there was lightning. And I thought, man, the worst thing that could happen out here is I'm standing outside the car with a gas can refueling, right, and I'm going to get struck. So and it sounds silly and it's probably kind of stupid, but I opened up the trunk and I kept my feet inside the trunk and then reached around and gassed up the car while I was standing inside the car. You know, inside the vehicle is a safe spot in a lightning storm. The charge is conducted around the body. I don't know if it was helping any with me, you know, in the middle of refueling, so I was still probably connected to the body of the car. But yeah, lightning is a major, major risk out there, and that one really had me spooked. And actually, just a mile from home, as I was coming into town to end my chase, I hit flooded roadway. And I did not know how deep it was. It was dark. I could see the water on the road, and I hit it at speed, and it was pretty deep, several inches, but the car made it through. So yeah, it's flash flooding, it's lightning, it's road hazards, stuff in the road, driving, other drivers. Those are the real dangers to storm chasing. And I had moments with all of those yesterday.
It's tough when you're doing that alone as well, because you got to visually watch and drive instead of having a navigator and a driver, right?
Absolutely. It's so much better having that extra pair of eyes with you, somebody looking out for these dangers. I always like to have my partner Brinley with me. She spots these things, and I can focus on the driving, and we can keep ourselves out of trouble much, much, much better.
Tell me a little bit about your storm vehicle. You said you were standing in the trunk. Were you in a van?
I drive a 2015 Subaru Forester. I picked it out because it's all-wheel drive, it's compact, it's maneuverable, it's turbocharged, so it's got some nice pickup to it. I like being able to launch onto the highway from a dead stop, and I like the room and utility it offers.
I can tell you, my son and I were out yesterday. Of course, we just drove out north of town. He listened to your first podcast when we talked about it, and you gave tips and everything. And the one thing that as I'm videoing the storm with my phone, he just instinctively knew. He turned around to make sure, there wasn't another one creeping up behind us, which can happen, right? You're focused on one thing and something else is coming the other way.
Absolutely. Especially when the storm is going overhead. We say you want to keep your head on a swivel. You're just looking around constantly. You don't want to get focused on one thing because these storms, as we said again, they were cycling. And sometimes the cycles happen concurrently. So you're watching one tornado that's starting to dissipate and all your attention's on that. The new tornado is forming right over your head or right next to you. You really got to be conscious of that.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm tempering the excitement of my first tornado. I've never seen one until yesterday. And the reason I say I'm tempering it just because I think we're still trying to figure out here on a Sunday morning what the true damage of yesterday's tally was. I know Taylorville took a pretty hard direct hit. I know there was over 20-something people transported to local hospitals. I haven't heard anything else. I pray that there isn't anything worse than that. Have you heard anything yet this morning?
I have only heard sporadic reports of significant damage out of Taylorville and that area. I never hope to see damage or have, people get injured when we're chasing. And most of the tornadoes I saw yesterday were tracking over open terrain. I was watching the radar as I was chasing, and I looked over at the screen, and on the list of warnings, it displayed a tornado emergency for the Taylorville area. And for your viewers who are not quite familiar with how the warning process works, a tornado emergency is an extremely exceptional event. The National Weather Service reserves that for the most dire of circumstances. A tornado emergency means there is a confirmed large violent tornado in progress, and it is heading for a populated area. So when I saw that on my screen, I just gasped. I had a heart attack. I wasn't expecting that at all. Events like that typically wind up with, EF4, EF5 ratings sometimes and fatalities. And so when I see that on the screen, that's what I'm expecting. So
yeah, I think
it's very early.
Well, I was going to say that's an important note that you made. I mean, I did see that as well and didn't differentiate between tornado emergency and warning. You're saying there is definitely a difference between those two things and to take it seriously.
Yes. I've in 15 years of storm chasing, I've only seen it a handful of times. I've never actually chased on a storm that had a tornado emergency. Although I try to avoid a situation like that, a large tornado entering town. That's not something I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a major bad deal when you see that.
Do you know how strong, big any of these events were? Have you heard anything yet?
I've only seen very preliminary pictures and reports. What happens is these tornadoes are rated based on the damage they do. We actually don't have a way to measure their winds, and they're not rated based on how big they are. So what happens is the following days, the National Weather Service sends a survey team out there, and they look at all the damage, and then they try to guess how strong the tornado was based off the damage. It's the best we can do. The process is going to take a couple of days to complete. So maybe later today or tomorrow we'll hear about how bad some of these tornadoes are. But yeah, we're still waiting here for the reports.
And that's on the, what do they call it, the enhanced Fujita scale. Is that right? That's where we get the term EF1, 2, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to throw out any guesses out there. I actually have no idea. The tornadoes that I witnessed up in Western Illinois, we're probably in the EF0 to EF2 range, if I had to guess.
Okay.
So, but I would not be surprised if we see some higher ratings coming out of down there by you in the Taylorville area.
Yeah. Well, Skip, I don't want to take any more of your time here on a Sunday. I do appreciate you coming on. One of the things that I know you always help to do is try to help recovery after tornadoes. You've got an organization that you're a part of that if people were wanting to donate is a way that they could help victims. Is that correct?
We have a loose-knit group of storm chasers, and we got together and we made this charity organization called Storm Assist. And we're trying to raise money for the victims of the storms that we're out there documenting. And we were just getting ready to release our annual DVD and Blu-ray that showcases a lot of storm chaser footage. We're probably going to hold it now to add a chapter in there for the December 1st tornadoes across Illinois, and maybe use that as a fundraiser for the victims of the Taylorville area and southern and central Illinois. But yeah, it's very preliminary. We're still discussing what impacts there were and which people need help and how we can benefit them. But yeah, we are definitely looking into this event being a main part of that charity.
So I know there's a lot of folks out there that recorded a lot. It was all over social media, all throughout the state. You're out there professionally documenting this, like you said, with some of your storm chasing cohorts. If there's a way to help, that you will. Where can people find more information, not only on that, but your site as well? Because I know you will put out reports, photo and video diaries as well. Where can people find all those things?
Yeah, if you want to go to, I run a couple of pages. Our charity organization is run out of stormassist.org. Our Facebook page should be updating soon with updates about some of the fundraisers we're having and these latest storms. And if you want to follow my own shots, my YouTube and Facebook pages are probably the best places to see my latest updates. If you just YouTube search Skip Talbot or Facebook search Skip Talbot. And then after that, I'll be updating my website, which is skip.cc.
And that's TALBOT, Skip Talbot, right?
Yep.
So everybody find it. So a lot of folks went out there again. Like I said, I won't even call it a chase. I just drove outside of town. But if anybody's out there, you saw what you saw yesterday and think this is something you want to take a bigger part in, what's your advice for all these folks before they get too gung-ho?
Yeah, my advice to aspiring chasers and beginner chasers is to just educate yourself as much as possible. There are a ton of great resources online. You should learn how to forecast and learn about meteorology. There are training modules that called MetEd from the UCAR website that you can Google and look up. You should attend the National Weather Service Skywarn Spotter Training. They are free classes held every spring. You just need to go to your Weather Service webpage and look up to see when those are being held and where. That's a great way to get active in spotting and storm chasing. And then before you do it yourself, I always tell people if you want to see real storms and real tornadoes and learn from the pros, you should sign up with a tour. And the one I most recommend is the College of DuPage. They have storm chasing trips they do every spring that are led by experienced veteran storm chasers and meteorologists. And it's a safe way to learn from experienced storm chasers. And I highly recommend people do that for their first trips out instead of, kind of stumbling out there, trial and error, and, maybe making some mistakes or getting into trouble.
Yeah. So, well, we don't want anyone getting hurt. I thank you for coming on short notice today, Skip. I'm glad you're safe, and I'm glad you had a successful photo and video intercept of everything you did yesterday. And certainly we hope and pray that nobody was hurt beyond just injuries yesterday, and they all make a full recovery. Property and vehicles and everything could be replaced. People and lives can't. And wow, just a crazy day. Didn't expect that. Did you? Not at all, huh?
Not at all.
Well,
it was a wild day.
Skip, thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.
All right. Is HGTV on in your house all the time like it is in mine? Is a home improvement project on your wish list? If yes, call my friend Gabe Dexheimer at Dexco Home Renovations. Gabe and his crew recently did a great job for my family kitchen. They can do a great job on your next project too. Indoors, outdoors, decks, kitchens, baths, you name it. No jobs are too big or small. If you have an idea or just want a professional eye to help you realize your dream, call Gabe today at 618-420-1742 for a no-obligation consultation. He helped my family realize a dream kitchen, and he can help all of you too. Let's get it done. Well, there you have it, Skip Talbot. I'll put all the links to his websites and everything here in the show notes. Storm Assist, if you want to help out his charity. And boy, I sure hope we've seen the worst of the damage so far in these tornadoes here this first weekend of December 2018. Thoughts and prayers go out to anyone that's affected. Tornadoes are a beautiful thing, but man, so dangerous. And I hated seeing some of the things we saw in the news this morning coming out of Taylorville and Butler, south of Staunton. Obviously, the classic car place and another couple of homes in this area. It's never a fun thing when that happens to anyone close. Just terrible circumstances, and we hope everyone's just okay. Like we said, property and things can be replaced, but lives cannot, and certainly none of us saw this coming. Not even the best of us saw this coming, as Skip told you. He thought they'd be good storms, had no idea it'd be a major tornado outbreak with 12, 13, 14 tornadoes, whatever it turns out to be, and whatever strength. So God bless all of you out there in the What's That Like Nation. Hopefully you're all safe. Hopefully your families are safe. And hopefully you're going to have a good December heading into Christmas. So that's it for this episode. We'll see you next time on the What's That Like podcast. Peace out. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like Podcast and on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!